Latinos fear me in Hollywood. They don't like me in Hollywood.
Why did they not like you?
I don't wear dresses. I don't do that gay stuff on TV. They had to get some other black person to do that stuff. I'm talking, that's gunning. But they all confess they love the Lord. But you cannot compromise yourself if you love the Lord. So I play tough guys, but young kids want to be soldiers. Young kids don't want to follow a guy to wear a dress. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Nate and Topher, two regular teens from Idaho, came up with a plan they thought could change their lives. They'd heard that British Columbia's weed was some of the best in the world. In 2001, Canada had just legalized medical marijuana, and the industry was booming. In the US, high-quality weed like that was nearly impossible to find, which meant demand would be through the roof. Nate was convinced. If they could get their hands on just 1 pound, they'd not only make back their money but also kick off a profitable business. But there was one big problem. They were broke. Nate worked as a pizza delivery guy, and even with tips, his paycheck barely covered gas and random expenses. Topher wasn't doing much better, working as a ride operator at a local amusement park. Together, they scraped together $1,400. Topher got most of it by selling an old boat he'd pulled from the bottom of a lake years ago. Nate joked it was Topher's first big deal, though the boat was more scrap metal than anything else. Fueled by the dream of striking it rich, they crossed the Canadian border, thinking it'd be easy to find a seller. But after hours of wandering and a few awkward conversations with locals, reality hit. British Columbia might be known for its weed, but it wasn't like you could just walk up to someone on the street and ask, "Hey, know where I can buy some?" Frustrated and running out of ideas, Nate suggested they hit up a bar to take a breather.
We was talking about earlier, bro. Working off on the plug.
What you'd picture in a small border
you
town.
can't just get it anywhere. But yeah, better find good places to get
beer
it.
Stains, a flickering neon sign, and the lingering smell of old cigarettes.
Or grow your
That's
own.
where they met a guy who looked like he knew a thing or two about the local scene. His name was Frankie. Frankie looked like he'd spent his entire life in places like this. He was wearing a beat-up jacket, nursing a pint of cheap beer, and had this raspy voice that made him sound like he smoked a pack a day. The second Nate and Topher walked up to him, Frankie seemed to know exactly what they wanted. You wouldn't happen to know where we could find some flowers, would you? Nate asked, trying to sound confident but coming off awkward. Frankie smirked and squinted at them. Flowers, huh? I've got plenty of the best BC buds at my place. Question is, how much cash you got? Nate hesitated, but Topher blurted out, $1,400. Perfect.
See. That's one thing you don't ever do. You don't ever actually tell the person how much money you got. You ask them, well, nah, what's the price per whatever? Because you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to do. You dig?
He said with a grin.
Let me know your tickets, and then I'll let you know if I got it.
Frankie laid out the terms. They'd head back to his place where he'd hand over the goods. But there was one catch. No sniffing, opening, or even looking at the package. The smell could get you busted at the border, Frankie warned.
Well, that's good that he's already got it hermetically sealed. Shouts out to the hermetically sealed packages. Now, when the plug's working like that, that's usually a good pack. So you ain't even got to worry about it being bunk weed because, I mean, well, you do got to worry about it because the cheap people will do the expensive thing to fool you into being comfortable. But you got to know how to be comfortable with drug deals, though. You know, you got to be out there experienced. Shout out to the experience gang. You know, I've been arrived once, maybe twice. Probably not twice, but probably once. You know, everybody go through that once.
Giving them a knowing look. Everything was happening so fast. Nate and Topher didn't think twice. They handed over all their cash without even checking what was in the bag. That decision marked the start of their wild ride. They had no idea it would lead them into a world full of risks, betrayal, and big money. Crossing the border turned out to be a whole new challenge. The Canadian border is 3 times longer than the Mexican one, and there are no fences. That means you could just walk through the woods and at some point, realize you've already crossed into the US. Nate and Topher decided to take advantage of this. Unlike many other smugglers who hid weed in horse trailers, logs, tires, or even inside their own bodies, their plan was much simpler. Nate would drive home in his car, while Topher carried the stash in a backpack through the wilderness. Topher had